Item Number, SCP-409. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. No physical contact may be made with SCP-409 for any reason. Anything making physical contact with SCP-409 must be contained in quarantine immediately, along with any materials used in the transport of the subject. SCP-409 must be kept in a granite case at all times. Any transportation of SCP-409 must be done in a sealed granite container. Residue from SCP-409's effect are to be sealed in granite containers along with any tools used to transport residue into containers. Description: SCP-409 resembles a large quartz crystal, approximately 1.5 meters tall and 0.6 meters wide. Any objects coming in contact with SCP-409 will begin to crystallize after 3 hours. This effect will occur in any material other than granite. The crystallization will spread by approximately 2.5 centimeters per minute, and will convert the entire object or organism, inside and out. Subjects report this effect to be extremely painful, and similar to frostbite. After complete crystallization, the object will begin to make snapping and creaking noises for approximately 20 minutes, before bursting into thousands of fragments with great force. Anything touched by or touching a fragment will immediately begin to crystallize. Nothing at this time is able to reverse the effect in organic matter, including amputation of affected areas. Inorganic matter will only crystallize for a few centimeters around point of contact. SCP-409 was recovered expunged, under a pile of crystal shards several feet deep. Losses of personnel during recovery were high. Addendum 409-1, with the suggestion of Dr. 500-0021-D, Subject 409-D5 was exposed to the effects of SCP-409 and was left to become severely crystallized. After that he was treated with SCP-500, and a complete recovery was achieved in 9 days. Subject reported that he continued to feel pain in body parts that were crystallized even after the estimated recovery time. Pain faded 13 days after subject was treated. It is unknown if the pain effect was psychological or real during the intervening 4 days. Addendum 409-2, extensive testing has yielded no information as to why the crystallization occurs. SCP-409 and the shards created by it are indistinguishable from any other quartz crystal. The effect appears to be similar to a seed crystal, where a pre-existing crystal formation is added to a solution, causing the crystal to grow. SCP-409, however, appears to do this with all solid matter, and does not need to remain in contact. How this is done, why SCP-409 is unique among all other quartz crystals, and why granite is the only material immune, are all still unknown. Item Number, SCP-524. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedure, as it has a benign nature, little security is needed for this SCP. More commonly known as Walter, SCP-524 must be kept under surveillance in order to prevent accidental damage to any vital material within the site. Whilst not under the direct care of a personnel member, SCP-524 may be kept in a specially designed pen, roughly 5 by 5 meters, with sensors placed within to notify SCP-524's current keeper of any escapes. Due to its abilities, there are no specific diets to be assigned to this SCP. Description: SCP-524 is a common white rabbit, of the species Oryctolagus cuniculus. It can be identified by its white fur with symmetrical black markings on its body. SCP-524 has shown the ability to be able to consume any material, regardless of edibility. It eats in the same fashion as any other member of its species, though it can eat substances that are not only inedible, but dangerous. SCP-524 has been recorded chewing through wood, steel, glass, and in one instance, several kilos of radioactive material. SCP-524 shows no adverse effects from anything it has consumed. Despite the obvious paradox involved, SCP-524 has been known to fully consume its own body. It begins by chewing on its tail, slowly eating up past the hind legs, and up towards its head. When it reaches up past its front legs and neck, SCP-524 somehow manages to flip its entire mouth inside out, consuming its entire head, and disappearing completely. Roughly 30 minutes later, SCP-524 reappears near the spot it had eaten itself, completely whole. It is essentially unharmed by the process. Addendum: SCP-524 was discovered during a major blackout in August of 20 redacted. It had disrupted a large power plant by chewing through several reactors and was discovered nibbling on a large wire. Item Number: SCP-313. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-313 is to be kept unmounted and disconnected when not being tested. Access is strictly prohibited except with special permission from a Level 4 official. Under no circumstances are personnel to press the button, save for officially sanctioned testing under rigidly controlled conditions. Please see Addendum 313-A. Description: SCP-313 is identical in appearance and marking to a World Dryer Corp Model A electric hand dryer. The object measures 25 cm x 24 cm x 21 cm. Its casing is painted white steel, with a polished stainless steel nozzle and button. Internal workings are consistent with Model A specifications. However, despite this veneer of normalcy, SCP-313 has two significantly anomalous qualities. First and foremost, it is utterly indestructible and impervious to all forces available to us, and secondly, it is extraordinarily destructive, apparently by design. Destruction test logs are available on request to those with Level 2 or higher security clearance. The second anomalous property should be considered armed when SCP-313 is mounted on a wall and connected to a dedicated 20A power source. Under these conditions, each push of the button represents a 1.5% chance that this property will activate. When this occurs, SCP-313 will begin to emit a stream of superheated plasma, which originates somewhere within the object and exits from the nozzle in a direction perpendicular to the surface on which the object is mounted. The stream's force and temperature increase exponentially until the object tears loose from its mounting and/or propels itself through the mounted surface. Temperatures of over 25,000 K and forces as great as 650 knots have been recorded, although thrust of this magnitude would never occur under normal circumstances. The flow of plasma will continue for up to 30 seconds after the object has torn free, i.e., the normal duration of airflow for a standard Model A, generally enough to propel the object an enormous distance if there is nothing in the way, or cause it to ricochet at high speed inside any structure in which the object is confined, potentially demolishing the structure. This destruction is compounded by the effects of extremely high temperatures. Both the civilian casualties and property damage attributable to SCP-313 are staggering. It has caused a number of fires and other disasters over the years, generally in a predictable pattern of being sold and installed, blasting halfway across the country, and being found and resold. The object passed into Foundation hands when it impacted near Site-05, having been mistaken for a meteorite. Addendum 313-A. Some of the lower-level personnel have been pestering me about our safety procedures when using SCP-313. For those of you who have forgotten high school physics, 25,000 K is over 4 times hotter than the surface of the Sun, and 650 knots is roughly enough force to lift an M1 Abrams main battle tank. Now imagine that much force behind this object, which weighs less than 10 kilograms, remember, F equals ma, and is indestructible. Dr. Sundstrom, Supervisor 3-401, Site 19. Item Number, SCP-352. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Containment area is to remain sealed at all times. No human interaction is allowed with SCP-352. Any and all interaction should be carried out via robot or other remote means. Should human interaction become necessary, full hazmat containment protocols should be observed. In addition, security lines must be attached to all personnel. Should any personnel begin to exhibit erratic behavior, they are to be immediately removed from the containment area via the security lines. Any staff reporting hallucinations after interaction with SCP-352 or her hair are to immediately be placed under quarantine. Any staff working in or around the containment area must submit to random psychological and physical testing. Anyone found to be contaminated will be placed into immediate quarantine. Staff attacked by SCP-352 may only be recovered if they have not been bitten by SCP-352. SCP-352 is to be fed only once weekly. Feeding will be discontinued for 1 month if SCP-352 attacks any personnel. Description: SCP-352 appears to be a very old, emaciated woman of indeterminate age and race. SCP-352 speaks Old Russian, but with an accent and dialect that makes translation very difficult. SCP-352 is extremely unwilling to communicate, with most of the conversations thus far made primarily of threats or statements of revenge. SCP-352 has never identified herself by any name, and due to her aggressive nature, it has been impossible to determine any background information. SCP-352 possesses a level of strength and speed much higher than what should be possible for a person of her perceived age and physical dimensions, and has been shown moving loads in excess of 200 kilograms with little physical strain, and moving at speeds in excess of 70 kilometers per hour. SCP-352 can recover from wounds that would be lethal to a human being, including decapitation and disemboweling. This regeneration can take between several days to several weeks, depending on severity. Internally, SCP-352 appears to be a normal human woman, with muscles, bones and organs in a state consistent with advanced age. Testing done on tissue samples has been inconclusive. SCP-352 is capable of growing very thin, hair-like strands from any part of her body, apparently at will. These strands can grow several meters in an hour, and appear to be at least partially under the control of SCP-352. They have been observed crawling along floors and up walls and other structures. These hairs are clear and nearly invisible to the naked eye, and appear to be slightly weaker than standard human hair. The strands are also coated in a thin layer of chemical enzyme identical to the enzyme in the saliva of SCP-352. SCP-352 produces an enzyme that is most concentrated in the saliva and hair, but is present in all bodily tissues of SCP-352. How it is produced and its exact chemical makeup are unknown. This enzyme reacts on contact with human tissue and rapidly attacks the nervous system. Symptoms manifest almost immediately, and include hallucinations, euphoria, suppression of cognitive or logical thinking, and suppression of pain receptors. This state persists for several days with mild exposure, and can become permanent with high exposure. Bites from SCP-352 lead to high exposure in 99.9% of cases. SCP-352 appears to subsist on a carnivorous diet, with a strong preference for human flesh. SCP-352 will create a web of hair, and wait for prey to become exposed to the enzyme and become more docile. SCP-352 will often remove and eat the limbs of a prey item to prevent it from wandering away, and can take several days to fully devour prey. Humans have been observed to still be in a euphoric state, and have no knowledge of the outside world even as they suffer the loss of limbs and other bodily tissue. Addendum: Notes on recovery. SCP-352 was recovered in southern Russia, near the town of Redacted. Reports of an enchanted forest and a witch who had caused several deaths were initially ignored, until reports of the witch being found and captured began to surface. When Foundation agents responded, the town was found deserted. Several bodies were found in varying states of decomposition, and blood trails appeared to show many more bodies being dragged into the enchanted forest. Recovery teams were dispatched and captured SCP-352, but suffered heavy casualties due to SCP-352's attack and exposure to the enzyme. A large amount of hair was recovered as well, and is believed to be the cause of many exposure incidents, with contact being attributed to spider webs or an agent's own hair and not reported until hallucinations manifested. Addendum: Notes on behavior. While SCP-352 prefers any type of human flesh over any other type of meat, it appears to have a special propensity for children between 0 and 2 years of age. After observation of highly elevated levels of cooperation and a reduced tendency to attack staff while consuming flesh of this type, a possible alteration in the current diet is being considered. Addendum: the use of SCP-604 and SCP-1680 as a more efficient food source for SCP-352 is currently pending approval from the project director following initial testing. Item Number: SCP-611. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-611 must be sealed within its specified enclosure at all times. SCP-611 should be provided with 1 piece of rotting meat per week, as per dietary standards. Current information suggests that beef tongue, aged at room temperature for roughly 2 weeks, provides the best nutritional results while limiting breeding. A technician specializing in insecta must maintain the enclosure. Technicians performing maintenance on the enclosure must wear full biohazard suits to prevent possible infestation. While performing any maintenance, the temperature should be lowered to 10 degrees Celsius, which will lower the activity level of SCP-611 significantly. After maintenance is completed, biohazard suits must be completely sterilized and cleaned. Following Incident 611-1, SCP-611 has been relocated to a lower level. No food products may be allowed on the same containment level as SCP-611. Description: SCP-611 was first discovered in Redacted, New Mexico in 20 Redacted. A group of tourists recently returning from Redacted contacted a local dentist concerning severe tooth and jaw pain. The doctor, discovering the infestation, contacted the Center for Disease Control, at which time the Foundation stepped in and took over. After extracting the larvae from the tourist group, Foundation operatives traced SCP-611 back to the Redacted restaurant, which had unwittingly played host to them for over a month. Class A amnestics were administered to all restaurant employees and all infected patrons that could be located. Most larvae were removed in time, though some had already caused extensive damage. Over-redacted deaths caused by subsequent infection were believed to have occurred. SCP-611 is a previously undiscovered subspecies of Dermatobia hominis, the human botfly. It camouflages itself, appearing as a common toothpick, and will attempt to land near or actually in a supply of the objects, at which point it will shed its wings and enter a passive state. It can remain in this dormant condition for up to 40 days before cessation of life signs. SCP-611 will lay eggs in the gums of a subject when used. Hosts notice no signs of invasion until 4 to 7 days later when the eggs hatch and burrow into the jaw, causing severe discomfort. The larvae cause sharp, continual pain and, if left untreated, can cause death by opening wounds for infection. The larvae will eventually consume enough to enter a pupae stage unseen in other botflies. Its body will harden and lengthen, eventually punching through the skin of the host. At this point, SCP-611 will take to the air and search for others of its kind with which to mate. The primary adult stage of SCP-611's life only lasts 72 hours at maximum, suggesting that there may be a larger presence of SCP-611 in Redacted than previously thought. SCP-611 appears to be hermaphroditic, with no discernible difference between male and female members of the species. This is largely unheard of for insects, adding to the suspicion that SCP-611 might not be a naturally occurring phenomenon. The highly specific nature of SCP-611's adaptation to an invention only in use for a few hundred years is also highly suspect. Further testing is recommended to determine if this is a natural case of expedited evolution or a case of an engineered species. Incident Report 611-1, on Redacted, 20 Redacted, proper sterilization procedures of biohazard suit were not fully observed, and 3 members of SCP-611's enclosure escaped containment. 2 were discovered tapping against the enclosure's glass observing room, apparently attempting to rejoin, but the 3rd was not discovered until it had already made its way to break room 13. The subsequent population generated by the initial infestation caused redacted deaths, and over-redacted cases of severe mandible trauma. SCP-611 was subsequently relocated to a lower level with no break rooms or mess halls to limit possible accidental exposures. Individuals who suspect a possible breach should immediately report to Dr. Redacted for oral examination and antiparasitic treatment. Item Number, SCP-426. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, I am to be sealed in a chamber with no windows through which I may be viewed. The door to my chamber must have a label completely unrelated to my designation or identity, in order to prevent unintended spread of my primary effect. Only level 3 and above personnel are to know of my presence, and particularly of my properties. Assigned personnel are to be rotated out on a monthly basis to prevent contamination by my secondary effect. Psychiatric evaluation is mandatory at the end of the month. If personnel are deemed unaffected, they may be reassigned to me no less than 4 months after their last rotation with me. Any affected personnel are to be given a Class C amnestic and transferred to a different site. Description: Hello, I am SCP-426. I must be introduced this way in order to prevent ambiguity. I am an ordinary toaster, able to toast bread when supplied with electricity. However, when any human being mentions me, they inadvertently refer to me in the first person. Despite all attempts, there is yet to be a way to speak or write about me in the third person. When in my continuous presence for over 2 months, individuals begin to identify themselves as a toaster. Unless forcibly restrained, these people will ultimately harm themselves in their attempts to emulate my standard functions. I was discovered in the home of the redacted family after the gruesome deaths of 3 of its members. I had been given to the younger Mr. and Mrs. Redacted as a wedding gift. No card or any other identifying markings had been found on my box. Approximately 2 months after the family received me, fire crews were dispatched to the home due to an electrical fire. The younger Mrs. Redacted died from the electric discharge that she had caused when attempting to devour an electric socket. The other 2 victims had died shortly before the fire occurred. The elder Mrs. Redacted had gorged herself with nearly 10 kilograms of bread before her stomach burst and she died of internal bleeding. The younger Mr. Redacted died of severe blood loss after attempting, redacted, with me. The sole survivor was the elder Mr. Redacted, who was suffering from severe malnutrition. He stated that he had inserted some bread a week prior and was still waiting for the toast to pop out. I was confiscated by the Foundation after police noted my unusual properties. A Class C amnestic was administered to the affected officers. Experiment Log 426-1, Date, redacted. Subject, D-Class Personnel D-426-1. Procedure, D-426-1 was asked to describe what he believed was contained in my chamber. He was not informed about my identity or properties. Details, D-426-1 stated, I'm probably some huge monster holed up in there. That's what you guys have all over the place, right? D-426-1 remained oblivious to his use of the first-person pronoun. Experiment Log 426-2, Date, redacted. Subject, D-Class Personnel D-426-2. Procedure, D-426-2 was placed in my chamber and given regular meals through a dispenser. No communication with D-426-2 was permitted. Multiple cameras were situated in the chamber, positioned so that I was outside of their field of vision, but allowing constant observation of D-426-2. We remained sealed until my secondary effect manifested in the subject. I was bolted to the floor so that I could not be moved into a camera's view. Details, after 45 days of isolation, D-426-2 wrapped his arm around me and began conversing with me, stating that we were brothers. D-426-2 never deviated from using the first-person plural when speaking with me. Subject was terminated 1 hour after this event. It is theorized that the isolation accelerated the progression of my secondary effect. Experiment Log 426-3, Date, redacted. Subject, D-Class Personnel D-426-3. Procedure, a screw was removed from me and shown to D-426-3, who was asked to describe it. D-426-3 was not informed about my identity or properties. Details, D-426-3 referred to it as my screw. Consistent with Experiment 426-1, the subject was oblivious of his use of the first person in his description. This suggests that, even if I were destroyed, my effects would still be inherent in my remains. Experiment Log 426-4, Date, redacted. Subject, D-Class Personnel D-426-4. Procedure, D426-4 was placed in isolation in a cell adjacent to my chamber, to be observed until my secondary effect manifests. Details: no effects appeared. D426-4 was terminated 90 days after the start of the experiment. Thank God there are some limits to my effects. A lot of us were really starting to get worried about me. Dr. Redacted.
Item number: SCP-221. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-221 is to be kept in a locked container where it cannot be removed, except for further testing by Security Clearance Level 2 personnel. The container is a 15.25 cm by 15.25 cm steel box with a cushioned interior, with an internal locking system. The container is to be placed in a locked room, with a guard to ensure that SCP-221 is not taken. Description: SCP-221 is a pair of tweezers made out of gold, made in the 16th or 17th century. After subject testing, it was noted that the damaged areas, which had been used to gather material samples, were smaller than they had been prior to the test. It is currently theorized that SCP-221 uses the minute amounts of gold in the human body to regenerate damage to itself. Subject testing revealed that SCP-221 creates a highly focused case of obsessive-compulsive disorder in any person which uses it on their own body. Subjects will utilize SCP-221 to slowly remove any and all hair from their body, before removing finger and toenails, as well as teeth, culminating with the removal of organs, both the external, such as the eyes and skin, and the internal, such as the liver and pancreas, using their hands if SCP-221 is not effective, though SCP-221 will never be set aside during this process, and remains gripped in one of the subject's hands. If SCP-221 is taken away from the subject, they become violent and manic, and will use their hands to continue the process, albeit in a less careful manner. It is to be noted that the progression of this behavior is different for each subject, but no less fatal. SCP-221 came into Foundation possession after reports of a human being who was. Foundation personnel retrieved SCP-221 within 10 hours of the original report. Addendum. Test Log 221-1. The test subject, a Class D, was ordered to use SCP-221 to remove his eyebrow hair. While the subject was initially unenthusiastic about his task, after the first 10 minutes he began to more actively pluck out his own eyebrow hair, and after completely denuding his brow, moved on to plucking out his eyelashes, despite repeated assertions that the test was over. When released after SCP-221 was taken out of the room, he began to pluck out his eyelashes with his own fingers, completely removing all of them before moving on to his toenails. The subject completely removed his toe and fingernails, before yelling and smashing his own face against a wall. The reason for this outburst became apparent when he reached into his mouth and began ripping out his now loosened teeth. Eventually the subject died from blood loss and shock, halfway through the task of pulling out his own internal organs. Test Log 221-2. The test subjects were 2 Class D personnel. Test Subject 1, ordered to use SCP-221 on the other Class D. Test Subject 2. After 15 minutes, the test subjects began to argue about how the holder of SCP-221 was using it on the other. The test subjects began to fight for use of SCP-221. Test Subject 1 used SCP-221 to stab Test Subject 2 through the eye, piercing into the brain, immediately killing him. Test Subject 1 began to use SCP-221 to remove his own eyelashes, continuing to his teeth and eyes. Test Subject 1 died of blood loss, after removing 73% of the skin on his body.
Item Number, SCP-527. Level 1 Unrestricted. Containment Class, Euclid. Disruption Class, VLAM. Risk Class, Notice. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-527 is to be contained within a standard humanoid domicile at Site-19. No other containment procedures are necessary. Description: SCP-527 is a male humanoid, 1.67 meters in height, which is biologically non-anomalous, with the exception of its head, which is that of a Puntius semifasciatus, or gold-barbed fish. SCP-527 displays no other anomalous qualities. The head of SCP-527 functions the same as the head of any other non-anomalous human. SCP-527 is capable of typical human speech. A tattoo reading, Mr. Fish, from Little Misters by Dr. Wondertainment, appears on the bottom of its left foot. Discovery: SCP-527 was discovered in Boston by Foundation agents in 2002, and was moved to Site-19 in 2004. Addendum 527.1, Initial Interview. Thank you for your cooperation thus far, SCP-527. We're just using this interview as a way to gauge any potential anomalous behavior we might not expect. Alright. To begin, are you capable of breathing underwater? No. Are you capable of communicating with other fish, or with other sea-based life forms? No. I see. When did you first discover your condition? Were you by any chance attacked or bitten by a fish you did not recognize, or experience an encounter with a sea-based deity of some kind? No. Ah, well, then you've been like this since birth? Yep. Alright. Do you know of any other anomalous traits you might exhibit? Sure don't. Like I told the other guy, this is all it is. You're looking at it. Lie, stripes, hot, sweetie, they got all the good stuff. I'm just a guy with a fish head. Do you have any idea why your creator might have fashioned you in this way? Fuck if I know. Addendum 527.2, Recovered Document. Note: when asked, SCP-527 was able to produce the following document. Wow! You've just found yourself your very own Little Mister, a limited edition collection from Dr. Wondertainment. Find them all and become Mr. Collector.
Item Number: SCP-111. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: all specimens of SCP-111 in captivity are housed at Site-19. Wing, in a 5-meter-cubed plexiglass enclosure containing a temperate forest habitat transplanted from its natural surroundings. Habitat temperature will be maintained at 30 degrees Celsius. Feeding is to take place weekly by personnel placing 3 kilograms of iceberg lettuce into the containment chamber. Water is to be supplied by an automatic misting system which regulates humidity levels at 50%, both for water required by SCP-111 and to prevent fires. In event of SCP-111 specimens breeding, personnel are to collect all eggs and transport them to the Biological Studies Wing for freezing. Description: SCP-111 is an apparently artificial species of invertebrate vaguely resembling snails. Adult specimens of SCP-111 are approximately 20 cm in length, 12 cm in width, and 15 cm in height, although exact size differs slightly between specimens. SCP-111 specimens differ from ordinary snails in that they have a warm-blooded metabolism, complex eyes, small horns consisting of cartilage-ridged tentacles, apparently increased intelligence. Personnel are requested to read test logs for examples, and a complex vertebrate-type jaw structure. As well, specimens lay eggs possessing hardened shells. Most abnormally, SCP-111 specimens possess small hollow sacs below their lower jaws containing methane from digestive byproducts. A series of along the inside of the trachea serves as a lighter igniting stored methane as the specimen exhales, blowing a small jet of flame from its mouth. Said fire breathing generally occurs in events of stress or anger, although is not apparently used deliberately for destruction but rather as a warning. This is presumably due to the limited size of methane sacs, which limits SCP-111 specimens in the amount of fire they can exhale at a time, and requiring both time and starch-rich food to refuel. SCP-111's behavior is inconsistent with that of ordinary snail species, including whistling and hooting vocalizations easily audible to humans, high intellect seen in such tests as and parents caring for their young. Hatchlings have been observed imprinting on their parents, other members of their own species, or researchers. This is presumed to be a deliberate trait based on Document 111A, as it means that hatchlings imprint upon owners. History. On. A package containing 12 SCP-111 eggs and Document 111A was mailed to a Foundation Front organization. Mobile Task Force Alpha 4 have proven unable to locate the sender of said package. Document 111A.
New from Dr. Wondertainment. Dragon snails. The perfect pets for the fantasy-loving child. Care and hatching instructions. 1. Having read this document, take the eggs out of the box. Be careful, dragon snail eggs are fragile. 2. Put the eggs in a warm, safe place, and wait 7 to 10 days. 3. Hold your newly hatched dragon snails so they get a good look at you and think you're their mommy. And 4. Enjoy your new pet dragon snails. To feed your dragon snails, give your new little friends some raw veggies, lettuce, Brussels sprouts, beans, any sort of salad stuff you don't want. Remember to give them water, a small glass each, once a day. For your enjoyment, dragon snails come in 6 types. Breed them for unique pets. Types. 1. Slimy bellies, adorable and oozy little fellows, with awesome fire engine red-colored skin, little black horns and belly, and a speckled tan shell. Beautiful robin's egg blue eggs. 2. Ooze drakes, inquisitive little creatures, with neat banana-colored skin, curly horns and striped shells. Pale tan eggs, like a chicken. 3. Guoiverns, dark blue-gray skin, flattened shells, and a bumpy horned head make guoiverns look like tiny sea monsters. Eggs are a fantastic glassy green color. 4. Globworms, green and gold stripes, pointy shells, and a single horn, not to mention fuzzy tails, make globworms wonderful pets. Eggs are tan, with a silver tint. 5. Glowdrakes, new from Dr. Wondertainment, these little fellows may look like blue-black slimy bellies. Until they light up. That's right, glowdrakes glow in the dark. Eggs are a golden color with little red dots. 6. Gunquiverns, chubby, green-skinned, and dome-shelled, gunquiverns make great pets. Eggs are transparent, so you can see the baby dragon snail inside. Parental notice. As Dr. Wondertainment's dragon snails breathe fire, they have been known to cause house fires. For maximum playtime fun and safety, it is recommended that fire extinguishers be kept handy. Despite this, Dr. Wondertainment is not legally, morally, or financially responsible for any injuries, death, or property damage resulting from the unsafe use of dragon snails or any other Dr. Wondertainment products. By reading this document and incubating your dragon snail eggs, you agree to all said terms and forfeit your rights to lawsuits, organized boycotts, protests, honor duels, etc. Enjoy your purchase.
Item Number, SCP-563. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. As all carcasses of SCP-563-A have been removed from SCP-563, minimal containment of SCP-563 is required. It is to be surrounded by a perimeter of motion trackers at every 3 meters, which are remotely monitored by Site-1265-A, 15 kilometers away. Mobile Task Force Site-22, codename, Hannah's Barbarians, is tasked with locating and containing other instances of SCP-563 and finding information pertaining to the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation. Currently, MTF Site-22 is working with the governments of South Korea, Japan and the People's Republic of China to covertly outlaw the trade of SCP-563-B instances, and recall any existing instances, citing food safety concerns. The government of the People's Republic of China is currently collaborating with the Foundation to find sites similar to SCP-563, and locating living instances of SCP-563-A for study. Description: SCP-563 is the designation for an abandoned plot of farmland located in Hubei Province, China. The facilities of SCP-563 have been modified for the factory farming of animals weighing up to several tons. SCP-563 is equipped mainly to handle large poultry, but other animals were raised at the facility. SCP-563-A refers to the carcasses of the presumed livestock of SCP-563, which were found at time of recovery. SCP-563-A instances were several species of dinosaur and related reptiles that lived in China and Mongolia in the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. For a partial list of recovered specimens, see Log 563-05. When alive, SCP-563-A instances were presumably farmed to create instances of SCP-563-B. SCP-563-B is the prehistoric food line of products made by a company known as the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation. Records of this company have been found, but as of writing, the location of their primary business office and other facilities used to make SCP-563-B are currently unknown. SCP-563-B products are sold in several East Asian countries, but have been discovered in some supermarket chains in the USA. Various instances of SCP-563-B include Apatosaurs, an instant ramen made with sweet and sour sauce and the meat of an unknown sauropod, presumably a smaller, easier-to-contain dinosaur similar to Abrosaurus dongpoi. Notably, chunks of gastroliths have been found in this product, suggesting it is partially made with stomach meat. Ancient Dragon Velociraptor Noodles, instant noodles made with an assortment of meat from several dinosaurs, as well as pork, rice, and chunks of melon in what is advertised to be of velociraptor broth. Testing of broth is inconclusive. Product reportedly tastes like high-quality instant noodles, with a high salt content. The first product of the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation to be sold in the USA in the redacted specialty supermarket chain. Dragon Bone Tea, powdered tea advertised as being made using the bone meal of various species of dragon. DNA testing has shown that the particles are partially derived from non-fossilized dinosaur bone, but approximately 75% of the test results have been inconclusive. To date, this is the only product made by the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation that has been recalled for safety reasons. Dino Snacks, sold in Japan under varying flavors. Marketed using anthropomorphic dinosaur mascots, including Takara Tyrannosaurusu and Riza Raputoru. Takara Tyrannosaur and Riza Raptor, respectively. Product resembles American pork rinds. Testing of the product has revealed that it is made of several species. Kentucky Fried Therizinosaur, a deep-fried poultry product sold as a frozen dinner in some parts of South Korea. As the name suggests, the meat is mostly made up of Therizinosaurus kiloniformis. Reportedly tastes like a very tough chicken. Kyoryokogen, literally dinosaur testicles. Sold primarily in Japan, consistently found to be made out of meat of pterosaurs of the Jalopterus genus. Advertised to increase sexual stamina and fertility in both men and women. Other non-anomalous products in this line include ginkgo soup, candied fern leaves, and steamed buns made with fish, stricken. The fish in these buns have been found to have actually been a species of trilobite, shelled and heavily cooked. Records found pertaining to the Ancient Dragon Culinary Corporation list SCP-563 as Production Farm 22. Investigations into the existence of the other 21+ farms and other facilities related to SCP-563 is currently ongoing. Log 563-05, a partial log of deceased specimens of SCP-563-A. A group of Microraptors aoianus, found in a locked shed near the central office of the farm. Injuries indicated that they were shot at close range with 10mm rounds. Notably, 2 instances were found to still be alive, having avoided fatal injuries from the gunshots and surviving on the carcasses of the deceased instances. All instances were found to have been wearing pet collars. Several hundred instances of Jalopterus ninchingensis, presumably in an artificial nest, found in a large metal shed. Cause of death not immediately obvious. Testing showed that all instances had been exposed to cyanide gas. The carcasses of several species of unidentified sauropod, immolated, found in a field surrounded by a highly powerful 15-meter-tall electric fence. Fence was found active upon containment of SCP-563, and contact with it resulted in severe injuries to a recovery force member. Burnt remains of several ceratopsian dinosaurs, including Protoceratops, were found near the aforementioned sauropod enclosure. Posthumous examination of all SCP-563-A instances found that up to 79% of the individuals found had a prion in their system prior to their death. Testing on this prion found it to be similar to a prion that causes kuru, suggesting that SCP-563-A instances had been fed or were feeding on the meat of the same species. Notably, most species of raptor found on site were immune to this prion. Addendum: Document 563 ADCC-5. The following is a translation of a document recovered from behind a picture frame in the main office building at SCP-563. The document was partially damaged by mold. However, Foundation linguists have been able to reconstruct what they believe is an accurate rendition of the document. Dear, name unknown. As the Americans say, we have hit the jackpot, windfall, big time. No more simple frozen meals for this failing company. The jungle you pointed us to has given us quite a boon. The meat is delicious, the fruit is unknown, most likely a synonym of delicious, and the seafood. One of the cooks made stir-fry with ginger in. I suppose you would call them shrimp and clams, but honestly, I'm no paleontologist. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. And the eggs, well, we're having difficulty finding unfertilized ones. The ones we do find either hatch or have babies, possibly embryos or zygotes, in them. But the things that do hatch, it would make an American scientist, most likely paleontologist, blush and then die of joy. We're sending back a few specimens to the leader. Next stop, unknown. Next sentence indicates a country to the north, most likely either Russia or Mongolia. Northward we go. With regards, Zhou Song.
Item number: SCP-066. Object Class: Euclid Impetus, formerly Safe Protest. Special Containment Procedures:
SCP-066 is to be kept in a safe deposit box at Site-21. Personnel Level 2 or higher may perform experiments on SCP-066 after filing the relevant request forms. Researchers may log their results in Experiment Log 066 Beta.
This was stricken from the document. SCP-066 is to be kept in a tungsten carbide box in Site-21's high-value item storage facility. Once every month, this box must be manually inspected for damage to the interior. If damage is present, SCP-066 must be moved to a new box. This task is performed via a robotic arm capable of performing the task in under 3 seconds. Description: SCP-066 is an amorphous mass of braided yarn and ribbon weighing approximately 1 kilogram. Strands of SCP-066 may be taken individually and manipulated. When this is done, a note on the diatonic scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, is produced by the object. When a set of 6 or more notes are produced, SCP-066 will produce a
benign
effect of varying nature and duration. SCP-066 will not respond to manipulation while any effect produced by it is in progress. Prior to Incident 066-2, results have included: SCP-066 transformed into a small calico kitten for 17 minutes. The kitten exhibited significant friendliness and playfulness, and appeared to be declawed. A song lasting 4 minutes, acoustic guitar with vocal accompaniment by singer or songwriter. The lyrics warn the listener not to use sharp objects without parental supervision. A small cupcake, chocolate with chocolate frosting and a lit candle stuck in the top. Notably, the tones produced prior to this effect corresponded to the opening notes of Happy Birthday. SCP-066 became responsive after said cupcake was consumed. Incident 066-2. On April 18, 2008, D-066-4437 was instructed to use a pair of scissors to remove a portion of SCP-066 for testing. However, when he began to cut it, SCP-066 rolled 1 meter away from him before stopping and making an unidentified squeaking sound. Before he could be provided with further instruction, D-066-4437 attempted to cut it again. SCP-066 rolled away and produced the phrase, "Are you Eric?" in response. After D-066-4437 replied in the negative, SCP-066 morphed into its present state and began emitting loud, dissonant staccato notes until D-066-4437 was escorted from the room. After Incident 066-2, SCP-066 began to exhibit behavior highly inconsistent with its previous properties. SCP-066 now displays significant mobility, primarily in the form of being able to move tentacular portions of itself at very high speed. While SCP-066 is either unable or unwilling to use this ability for transportation, it will occasionally attempt to damage its containment by rubbing its strands against the side of the box, gradually wearing it down. This process appears to be unusually effective for the materials in consideration. Additionally, SCP-066 will automatically produce notes and effects in the presence of any human, regardless of whether that human interacts with SCP-066. This process takes a minimum of 6 seconds. In the aftermath of Incident 066-2, effects produced by SCP-066 have included: a single bee was released near the containment, stinging D-4436 before flying away. The bee was not captured. It is unknown how the bee survived. Beethoven's Second Symphony was played at over 140 decibels, causing permanent deafness in 3 personnel and permanent hearing damage in 8 others. The room containing SCP-066 experienced a sudden and complete absence of light for 5 hours. Personnel in the room reported hearing loud breathing behind their shoulders, although no source was apparent. When it is not producing anomalous effects, SCP-066 will say the name, Eric, constantly in a deep masculine voice. Item Number: SCP-165. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Housed in a facility at Armed Biocontainment Area 14, SCP-165 is to be treated as a contagious, pathological organism. The highest sterilization and quarantine procedures are to be followed. Microwave field generators around SCP-165's area are in place to restrict movement of its student within its containment area. Once every 9 days, SCP-165 is fed live cattle weighing at least 750 kilograms. Description: the organic component of SCP-165 resembles that of typical parasitic mites, 750 micrometers in length, with 8 legs and a genetic structure similar to the house dust mite. The main difference is the hermit crab-like behavior of attaching grains of sand to its back. It is unknown what purpose the sand serves, but the massive colony of SCP-165 numbers in the hundreds of billions to possibly trillions, creating a rather large dune. The similarities between and SCP-165 are only superficial. This colony is protozoan in nature and apparently shows a collective intelligence and awareness that is not understood. SCP-165's colony is made up of individual Ikari who don't show cooperation but rather competition in the hunt for food. Like mosquitoes, they rely on chemical detection of carbon dioxide and sugars in the air to detect prey. The Ikari mites roll and bound over one another toward prey, only using their legs to climb over one another. When in contact with the flesh of animals, they release a numbing chemical toxin in their bite, similar in makeup to that of mosquito and flea bite toxins. Subjects are typically unaware that millions of mites are taking turns at grabbing mouthfuls of its flesh as they swarm around their victim. A typical swarm resembles a swirling vortex around a victim or victim's appendage. The SCP-165 colony is efficient enough in their competitive swarming that most animals' appendages can be defleshed and reduced to bone within minutes. The numbing toxin is so effective that sleeping victims may not wake up as their limbs are eaten away. The Ikari mites are resistant to all but the most dangerous of pesticides. They retreat from heat and will often seek shade when available, being the most active during the night, hunting for a large sleeping prey. Their vulnerability to heat is the most preferable technique for containment. Addendum: Acquisition. It is apparent that the U.S. government has been aware of dunes of SCP-165 for some 80 years. The area where SCP-165 was found is now a forgotten German immigrant ghost town of Fredericksburg, Arizona, in the Tule Desert near the Goldwater Air Force bombing range. The remote town of Fredericksburg was founded sometime in the late 1800s and by 1908 had become a ghost town. A passing cavalry troop reported that the inhabitants had disappeared and that the buildings were empty. They attempted to stay one night in the abandoned hotel, only to have 7 of their horses reduced to piles of bone. All but 4 of the soldiers fled in the middle of the night, saying that sand was filling the building like a flood of water. Those 4 were never seen again. During the late 1950s, the U.S. military attempted to exterminate SCP-165 by turning the area into a bombing range. It was successful in reducing the numbers of SCP-165, but in the late 1980s, it became apparent that a ground cleanup and extraction was needed to remove the presence of SCP-165. Mobile Task Force Epsilon 9, aka Fire Eaters, were dispatched for containment and extraction of SCP-165. Upon entering the town of Fredericksburg, an upturned sign was found, reading,
Vorsicht vor den kriechenden, hungrigen Sand,
which translates to, Beware the creeping, hungry sands. The flame accelerators of MTF Epsilon 9 proved highly successful in glassing the sand of SCP-165 and reducing its number to a manageable size. A living dune of nearly 4 metric tons of SCP-165 was contained and transported to ABC Area 14 where it is monitored and contained.
Item Number, SCP-607. Object Class, Euclid. Special Containment Procedures, Subject currently resides with Agent Redacted, who it has chosen as its owner. Both Agent Redacted and SCP-607 are to be placed under full surveillance for study, and Agent Redacted is to report to Dr. Redacted for psychiatric evaluation every 2 weeks. A task force should be ready at all times with at least 1 D-Class personnel on hand for subject to imprint on in the case of the death of SCP-607 or Agent Redacted. When not being directly held or monitored by Agent Redacted, SCP-607 is kept shackled and bound in a small, portable containment chamber. The containment chamber is designed to immobilize SCP-607, allowing medical personnel to insert feeding tubes, IV drips, catheters, and other life support devices. Due to the nature of SCP-607, Agent Redacted has elected to keep the portable containment chamber on his person or in his immediate vicinity at all times. Description: SCP-607 is a large gray male American shorthair cat of indeterminate age, with a collar reading, Dorian. SCP-607 was discovered in late 19 Redacted, when a man known as Redacted suddenly, and without warning, violently expired at a cocktail party in uptown New York City. Mr. Redacted's death was later found to coincide perfectly with the moment a party attendee leaving the home mistakenly backed over Redacted's cat. Due to the mysterious nature of Redacted's death, a local Foundation operative joined the investigation as a consultant. Special Agent Redacted had stepped outside to smoke a cigarette, when he heard a cute Lil Mullen sound. SCP-607 subsequently bonded with Agent Redacted, who chose to bring it back to the Foundation as a pet and companion. Agent Redacted reported difficulty in supporting SCP-607. The cat would not eat, became lethargic, and seemed to lack a will to live. Agent Redacted jokingly told fellow agents he was experiencing sympathy hunger pains. 7 days after Agent Redacted's initial contact with SCP-607, both he and the cat died of starvation. The circumstances surrounding Agent Redacted and Mr. Redacted's death piqued the interest of the Foundation, and the cat's dead body was taken to an isolation chamber until further testing could be ordered. SCP-607 reanimated approximately 24 hours after its estimated death time. It was, correctly, speculated that once SCP-607 bonded with a person, a negatively symbiotic relationship was formed. SCP-607 bonds with the first human individual it comes into contact with after reanimation. Several experiments were conducted, each involving bonding SCP-607 to a D-Class personnel. Testing showed that injuries inflicted on SCP-607 would show up on the bonded person, in the closest anatomical representation possible. Striking SCP-607 resulted in bruises on the personnel. Breaking one of the cat's front legs resulted in the personnel's broken arm. Termination of SCP-607 via gunshot resulted in death of the bonded personnel, via a bullet hole with no bullet found. In all of the experiments, SCP-607 reanimated approximately 24 hours after death, with no apparent physical injuries. Perhaps most important to note, however, is SCP-607's behavioral tendencies. Regardless of the bonded individual's attempts to appease the cat, SCP-607 is suicidal. SCP-607 has been observed starving itself, inflicting self-harm with its teeth and claws, running into traffic, antagonizing large dogs and then allowing itself to be mauled, eating poisonous materials, jumping into the moving parts of heavy machinery, and attempting to enter Keter containment chambers. In all cases, the death of SCP-607 has resulted in the death of the bonded individual, with injuries and causes of death mirroring those of SCP-607. Death and injury testing on SCP-607 has ceased after Agent Redacted accidentally bonded with it, during an unauthorized breach of the containment chamber. SCP-607 still displays suicidal tendencies, despite Agent Redacted's persistent attempts to form a favorable relationship with it. Agent Redacted has suffered severe bodily harm several times, leading to the decision to restrain SCP-607 in a portable containment chamber fitted with a life support system. Agent Redacted is under close observation, both to ensure psychological stability and to study the relationship between Agent Redacted and SCP-607. At this time, SCP-607 still displays suicidal tendencies when removed from restraints. It is unknown if SCP-607 has always displayed such tendencies, or if they are due to its resentment of the Foundation and the initial testing performed on it. Item Number, SCP-463. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-463 is to be maintained in the small glass display case within its containment cell at Site Redacted. If SCP-463 must be transported from its current location, it should be transported in its display case, or some other container. At no time should any Foundation researchers come into direct physical contact with SCP-463. Following the incident of Date Redacted, personnel are strongly discouraged from bringing food of any sort into SCP-463 cell. Description: SCP-463 is a small silver spoon, approximately 17.5 centimeters in length, with a mass of approximately 153 grams. Unless handled by a human, SCP-463 displays no abnormal behavior. Neutron imaging, MRI, and the redacted imaging system have revealed no detail to the inner structure. All analysis of SCP-463 is consequently limited to its directly observable effects. Any individuals who pick up SCP-463 have their spines bent backwards at a 90-degree angle, just below the T6 thoracic vertebra. This bending typically proves fatal, although some test subjects have survived with full lower body paralysis. Its effect on humans is displayed regardless of whether or not the subject is wearing gloves, oven mitts, or any other such barrier. The only apparent requirement for SCP-463 to be able to bend its holder is that the subject have a firm grip. Subjects who have held SCP-463 very weakly, that is, with just the tips of the fingers, have been unaffected. Testing has demonstrated that SCP-463 displays no unusual effects when in contact with autonomous machines, remotely controlled machines, animals, or corpses. Addendum: it is the opinion of Dr. Redacted that SCP-463 does not actually physically bend the user, but has somehow been embedded with a psychic trigger, which causes the user's back muscles to violently contract. This would explain the absence of SCP-463's effect when handled by non-humans. Memo: see testing logs SCP-463-redacted, redacted, and redacted. Dr. Redacted. Testing log SCP-463-redacted. 3 hours 1 minute and 25 seconds, subject D4221 is placed in proximity to SCP-463's unlocked container. Subject D4221's back muscles were surgically removed from his body during surgery for spinal stenosis. 3 hours 1 minute and 53 seconds, subject D4221 is instructed to pick up SCP-463. 3 hours 1 minute and 58 seconds, subject experiences bending of the upper spine. 3 hours 2 minutes and 6 seconds, subject goes into neurogenic shock. 3 hours 2 minutes and 48 seconds, subject declared clinically dead. Body removed from testing site. Testing log SCP-463-redacted. 4 hours 15 minutes and 39 seconds, subject D4279's wheelchair is placed in proximity to SCP-463's unlocked container. Subject D4279 has already had a complete fracture of the C5 vertebra, and has no neuromuscular connection to any muscles below the neck. 4 hours 15 minutes and 51 seconds, researcher, using tongs, places SCP-463 in D4279's hand. 4 hours 15 minutes and 53 seconds, subject experiences non-fatal bending of the upper spine. Minor injuries are sustained as a result of falling from wheelchair. 4 hours 15 minutes and 58 seconds, subject removed from testing site. Testing log SCP-463-redacted. 4 hours 45 minutes and 43 seconds, subject D5119 is placed in proximity to SCP-463's unlocked container. Subject D5119 has been paralyzed below the waist by prior interaction with SCP-463. 4 hours 45 minutes and 48 seconds, subject becomes highly agitated, and attempts to remove herself from the testing chamber. 4 hours 45 minutes and 59 seconds, an armed guard is called into the testing chamber to ensure compliance of D5119. 4 hours 46 minutes and 39 seconds, subject D5119 is instructed to pick up SCP-463. Subject does not comply. 4 hours 46 minutes and 45 seconds, subject D5119 is instructed to pick up SCP-463. Subject does not comply. 4 hours 46 minutes and 56 seconds, subject D5119 is instructed by the armed guard to pick up SCP-463. 4 hours 47 minutes and 10 seconds, subject experiences non-fatal bending of the spine, about the T6 thoracic vertebra. No further injuries are sustained. 4 hours 47 minutes and 20 seconds, subject removed from testing site. Memo: it would seem that SCP-463 does indeed exert a direct force on the user's spine. Sadly, we have absolutely no clues as to the nature of the force. We don't even know what the net torque is. I think the next course of action should be to test SCP-463 on personnel from whom the spinal column itself has been removed. Further testing is clearly in order. Dr. Redacted. Item Number, SCP-494. Object Class, Safe. Special Containment Procedures, SCP-494 does not require any special containment procedures, other than being kept under lock and key in storage bunker redacted at site redacted. Level 2 clearance and written permission from a Level 4 or higher researcher is required for testing procedures regarding SCP-494. Description: SCP-494 appears to be a regular pair of black leather fingerless gloves. SCP-494's anomalous features can only be observed while worn by a human subject. Upon being fitted onto the hand, SCP-494 will change size to match that of its wearer. Test subjects have described the feeling of wearing the gloves as if they were not wearing gloves at all. SCP-494's true anomalous nature is revealed in that when an object is held in each gloved hand, after exactly 5 minutes, the two objects' makeup will be suddenly traded. The range of materials that can be transferred as yet seems to have no limit, and has been observed to create working machines and even living organisms from the materials provided. See test log for details. SCP-494 seems to have some limitations, such as the fact that only objects that can be supported by the wearer's strength, artificial assistance, such as leaning one's hands against a wall or table, seems to negate the effects of the gloves, will be transformed, and for reasons unknown, the gloves will refuse to work when worn by a subject over the age of 60. Testing log. Test 494-1. Materials: right hand, 1 0.24 carat diamond, left hand, 1 regular golf ball. Result: right hand, 1 diamond-shaped piece of plastic, left hand, 1 rounded crystal formation, 2 inches in diameter. Diffractometry confirms monocrystalline diamond. Test 494-2. Materials: right hand, 1 Nokia flip cover cellular phone, left hand, 2 stainless steel razor blades. Result: right hand, 1 hinged stainless steel box with acid-etched surfaces denoting a cell phone keypad. Left hand, 2 mm thick machines with small screens and microscopic computer circuitry. Found to be fully functional as cellular phones. Test 494-3. Materials: right hand, 1 white laboratory rat, left hand, 1 1974 penny. Result: right hand, 1 copper statuette of a rat, left hand, 1 small, disc-shaped organism with white fur. Though lacking sensory organs or any observed lungs or digestive system, organism is entirely viable and responds to external stimuli such as light and pain. Test 494-4. Materials: right hand, 1 vial containing live Streptococcus bacteria, left hand, 1 white laboratory rat. Result: right hand, 1 vial containing animal cells with DNA of rat, left hand, no observable difference aside from a slight change in the hue of the animal's fur. However, after further observation, the resulting animal proved to be capable of asexual reproduction. It proceeded to give birth to 77 young within an hour, without any indication of stopping. Resulting offspring grew rapidly, maturing within a half hour. Mature offspring in turn produced their own offspring. All animals were subsequently incinerated. Estimations of rate of reproduction suggest over 100,000 young would have been produced within a day. Note: all tests involving the effects of SCP-494 on live microorganisms are now strictly prohibited. Addendum 494-1, suggestions for testing the effects of SCP-494 on SCP-500 in conjunction with other materials are currently pending approval.